So this Saturday we have Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker, the Battle of the Joes taking place at the Manchester Arena. And this fight is one that I've been looking forward to for quite a while. I remember doing a video on this fight, I think it was July last year, when there were first whispers that it could happen. It was obviously supposed to happen earlier this year. I think it was first announced around the time Dylan White was fighting Tyson Fury, and it's only just happening this weekend, so it's been long in the making, but here it is, and let's have a talk about it. If you haven't seen it already, which you probably have, G-Man, he uploaded his video on this fight earlier today, and I must say, great video, and I agree with a lot of the points he makes, especially in regards to Joseph Parker. Because Joseph Parker, we know what he brings to the table now. He's been around for quite a while, been in many notable fights, many performances that we can pick apart. And so we know what he brings as a fighter. And the way G-Man put it, and I 100% agree, is that Joseph Parker has a lot of ability and a lot of features that you'd like to see in a fighter. He's not the biggest heavyweight, but he's of a decent size. About 6'4". I think he weighs in like the 240s on average, and yeah, so he's a decent sized heavyweight, but he's very athletic, has good speed, good explosiveness, great balance. He also has pretty decent punch technique. His movement quality, for a big guy, the heavyweights tend to lack some of the coordination, but Joseph Parker, there's no such issue. And he can also be fairly slippery in terms of his defense. When Joseph Parker doesn't want to engage, he can be very difficult to pin down for a lot of these bigger guys at heavyweight. But there's one thing that Joseph Parker is still missing, and I'm sure you know what it is. It's the killer instinct. Joseph Parker he's just too nice almost. He just doesn't have the grit and the fire and just the rugged, rough mentality to really take a fight by the scruff of the neck and stamp his authority on it. And some people are saying that he's working towards bringing that out in his fights, but I still don't know if it's there. We saw against Derek Chisora that he had enough meanness to lay a beating on Chisora and knock him down and land with these big shots that would floor Chisora, but that fight still went the distance. And I think how many knockdowns were there in that fight, in that Chisora rematch? I think there must have been 3, 4, maybe even 5 knockdowns. I remember Chisora being knocked down a lot and fairly heavily as well. But Chisora was just able to play possum and sit against the ropes, and Joseph Parker just didn't have that gusto to go after Chisora and really stick it on him and get him out of there, because you just felt that whenever Parker was landing, he had more than enough power to take Chisora out, but he just needed to string the punches together a bit more. And so I still think that attitude from Joseph Parker is still lacking. Because if you watch Joseph Parker in terms of interviews, he comes across as a very friendly guy, very approachable, but I think he's very much in the territory of being too friendly. And some people have speculated over the years that he's intimidated. He's fighting a lot of these big guys like Joshua, like Dylan White, Derek Chisora, and they're very physically imposing. I don't think it's that, because when you see Joseph Parker when he's on his way to the ring, he doesn't look particularly nervous. I think he's got bags of experience as an amateur and a pro, so I don't think the occasion gets to him. I just don't think he's that much of a natural fighter. And if you make the fight a certain way, if you have certain characteristics and a certain amount of aggression, you can start to close Joseph Parker out of the fight. When it comes to Joe Joyce, on the other hand, he's someone who, since his pro debut, I've been so impressed with him and his performances. And Joe Joyce is someone who, he's not much of a Marmite character, but he's a bit of a Marmite style in terms of you either love him or you hate him, because there's still a sizable contingent of people who think that Joe Joyce is this absolute dog shit. I'll say that. And I don't see it myself. Look, does he get hit a bit? Quite, yeah. Is he quite slow and methodical? Yes. But you can't deny the effectiveness of Joe Joyce. I think his defense is somewhat underrated. I think he's got very good offense, and he is just relentless. The fitness of this man, it really is. it's really something to behold. And yeah, his defense can be quite leaky, but he is. I mean, he has just a legitimate granite jaw. Honestly, probably the best chin in division. But he can be flustered. We saw in the Daniel Dubois fight that Daniel Dubois, yeah, he's quite mechanical and sluggish, like robotic in his own right. But because he was able to chain together his straight shots in particular, he was able to he was able to push Joe Joyce to the back half of his stance and make room for that right hand. And once Joyce was there, he kind of opts to keep the left hand low, and that he gets away with it sometime when he pulls out of the pocket. But that's more so when he attempts the left hook, because his weight is already traveling to the right through that punch. And so he can afford to keep that left hand low, because then he's going out diagonally. But if he finishes on a jab and he's got that left hand low, he can get timed over the top. And then Dubois showed that you can follow up and really piece Joe Joyce up at times. But other than that, Joe Joyce, I've compared him to the actual comic book Juggernaut character, from the X-Men, because that's of course Joe Joyce's nickname, the Juggernaut. And I think it's actually a very appropriate nickname, because the Juggernaut, for those who don't know, he becomes unstoppable when he gains a lot of momentum. As long as you can keep him moving, keep him immobilized, and don't allow him to gather any momentum, he's useless. However, once he gets moving, if he has the space and time and he picks up the momentum, he can just boulder through everything. And that's the same with Joe Joyce. Once he gets into his rhythm, he's actually a very difficult fighter to beat, because he has this work rate, which is just tremendous, but he also has the technique. He has a good active guard. The jab especially is just phenomenal. Not just the technique on it and how much range he gets on the jab and the speed and power, but it's the timing. And if you doubt the timing on Joe Joyce's jab, just ask Daniel Dubois, because Joe Joyce was badding him up with that jab. It was just incessant, relentless. He was taking the biscuit when it came to jabbing Dubois' face off. And Dubois probably doesn't have the best defense in terms of adapting and nullifying a jab, but I don't think that Joseph Parker has that great an ability to nullify Joe Joyce's jab either. As I say, Parker can be slippery, but I think he can still be timed, and I think he only has so many ways that he can deal with a jab like that, and he'll most likely just kind of pull away from it. That's what I'm anticipating from Parker. And I think when Joe Joyce sees that Parker doesn't really have many ways to defend and respond to his jab, he'll look to get some more offense out of there. And Joe Joyce, once again, has a great arsenal. He can throw shots to the body, he can throw shots to the head, hooks and uppercuts. He has a good selection, a good work rate, and I think he's just going to be a bit too active and a bit too cultured for Joseph Parker to get any meaningful offense off against. I think early on, we're probably going to see the fight follow a trend where Joe Joyce is looking to come forward, take the center of the ring and push Joseph Parker back to the ropes. I imagine Joseph Parker's probably going to try and do his best David Haye impression, where he's just circling on the outside, really trying to ambush Joe Joyce, because once again, comparing Joe Parker to Daniel Dubois, for all his shortcomings, he does have some good ring coverage, as I would say. He's got some good range on his jab and his straight right in particular, whereas Parker doesn't have that, but maybe he's a bit quicker of foot and hand speed. Well, I'm certain he is actually, but is he smaller than Daniel Dubois? I think so. So I think this is going to be, as I say, the kind of fight where Joe Parker is on the outside looking to really catch Joe Joyce coming in, look to ambush him with pot shots, because that's really what Parker does. He's got good technique, as I say, but I don't think he's the most cerebral fighter, and I don't think he has the widest variety of technique. So he's going to look to just land those pot shots, use his speed, his balance. But I think that's going to also give Joe Joyce time to get that momentum, as I say, really start to get his active guard going, because when he gets moving, his head's moving, his feet are moving, he's got his hands out, and he's mixing in those jabs to close down the range. I think Joseph Parker is going to probably start to get shut out of the fight, and potentially we could see those mental weaknesses in terms of the lack of desire and the lack of grit and determination really start to cost Joe Parker once again. I don't think he's going to be completely whitewashed in this fight. I think he will have some eye-catching offense. Maybe he wings a few shots over the top and catches Joe Joyce, who can be open to, in particular, a big wide overhand right. I think we saw that in the Christian Hammer fight. But Joe Joyce, I think, has a legitimate chin. I'm not sure if Parker has the power or enough power to really hurt Joe Joyce. So I think I'm quite comfortably picking Joe Joyce to win this fight and win it on points. I think when Joe Parker feels the pressure, he will be able to use some of that slipperiness and that elusiveness to see out the rounds. But I think for the most part, the clean, effective and consistent work will come from Joe Joyce, and he will win this fight on points. Probably a comfortable unanimous decision. So that is my take on this fight. I'm very much looking forward to it. And as I say, I expect Joe Joyce to win this fight and then move onwards and upwards to bigger things. The undercard, just to touch on it, is weak. And this is actually a pay-per-view, I believe, in the UK. Yeah, this isn't pay-per-view fair in my opinion. The main event is great, but the rest of the card, I don't know. It's yeah, I always try and stay optimistic with these subpar cards, but yeah, I can't forgive this one. But anyway, hopefully this fight lives up to it. As I say, I've been looking forward to this fight for a long time, and here it is. But for now, let's get this discussion going. What do you think of this fight? Leave your comments down below. Who do you think is going to win, and why do you think they're going to win? Leave it down there. I'll get back to you. Thanks for listening, and as always, I'll catch you in the next video.